We got two questions here. Is the league better when the Knicks are winning? And did the Los Angeles Clippers purposely tank at the end of the season? All that coming up in just a minute. What's good, everybody? It's your boy Jay here with Unfair Sports, where we take a pensive approach to the sports conversation. Make sure you hit the like and the subscribe button and also share. Why? Because sharing is caring. And the only way this content gets out there is because of you, the people.
All right, so Jay, now that we have most of our playoff matchups set, before we did yesterday where every team played, I was paying particular attention to a lot of the scenarios that were playing themselves out in terms of what might happen with the Lakers based upon the Denver-Portland game, what the Clippers might do, some things that were going on in the East as well. And in watching the Clippers more closely, particularly because they played our home team here, the Oklahoma City Thunder, I was somewhat appalled by what I saw because it was clear to me that by not playing Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, winning or losing that game affect whether or not they would be the 3 or 4 seed, that they were playing not only to lose, but to therefore lose to avoid somebody. And I couldn't quite figure out who that was that they were so afraid of. But I hate that. I hate fear going into the playoffs with fear in your heart, because any playoff team that you meet, they're going to sniff that out and they are going to potentially dominate you, to potentially get physical with you, because they know coming into this that you were afraid of somebody, that you let fear guide your decision making on the court. So obviously if they would have won yesterday, they would have gone to 3 and they would have played the Blazers in the first round.
Right.
But by losing and Denver losing, they play the Mavs. So was it the Blazers or was it a different team that they are afraid of, whether it's the first round or beyond that? Who are they afraid of?
Ooh, that's a really good question. Of course, the consensus is that they were afraid to play the Lakers in the first round. They want, they wanted to, they don't want to play the Lakers so early, or actually in the second round. They want to match up with the Lakers or later.
If Denver would have beaten Portland, then I guess they would, and they win. Then they would have faced the Lakers in the 6. The Lakers would be 6, Portland 7.
Correct.
And then 4-5 Denver.
Exactly.
Dallas.
So, yeah, avoiding the Lakers in the first round, it seems like that's exactly what happened.
So the only way to guarantee that wasn't going to happen
was by losing
to the
Oklahoma City Thunder. And the bad part about this for the Clippers is the Clippers lost 2 straight games. Not 1, but 2.
So they've been
to 2 of the worst teams in the league. Like, how do you lose to the Houston Rockets and the Oklahoma City Thunder, who both are obviously tanking?
By saying we're resting Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, which makes no sense, because even if they played those 2 games, or at least one of those 2 games, because you're not in a play-in, you don't have to play until Saturday at the earliest. So you get almost a full week of rest, and that makes it even more obvious that they were afraid of somebody. So how can you be afraid, let that affect your decision-making on the court, therefore making it obvious, and expect to get through these playoffs?
And the biggest problem with that is them resting for too long can also be detrimental.
Yes.
Not being on the court in those games for that long. I mean, of course, they'll probably pick it up as they get into the second round, but no, you're right. If they would have won those games, or one of those 2 games, end up in that 3 seed and move the Lakers up into it, that they probably recognize that would be very much detrimental, because at that point, neither team is traveling. I mean, if you think about it, they're not going anywhere. They live in L.A. I mean, besides Kawhi Leonard living in San Diego, somehow getting to L.A. on a regular basis. But real talk, they both live in L.A. They don't have to travel. It would be like home game after home game after home game. That's honestly the best case scenario for Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, is having them at home where they're not getting on a plane and having to do all that travel. They just put themselves in a scenario where they're going to have to travel. They're not going to be – they'll be rested. They're maybe too rested going into it. You probably want them a little bit warmer going into the playoffs, but I don't know. It does seem like they were trying to avoid the Lakers, though. That is what it felt like, losing those 2 games, of all games to lose. Or they were trying to help the Thunder and the Rockets look like they weren't tanking, which we all know the Houston Rockets shut down John Wall and got rid of Cousins. That kind of tells you something right there, guys. Right. Yeah, we know that they're both tanking.
So, again, going back to my pick, and every time I think about that pick now that I've stuck with, I just start rubbing my forehead because I have no idea how a team this fearful, this team who's always in need of load managing, how they're going to get through these playoffs. So you said if they beat the Mavs, they're looking at, you believe the Nuggets are going to beat Portland. So then you look at the team.
Well, no, it'll be the Nuggets will beat Portland. So they're in the 4. They'll be playing 1-8. It never moves. It's always 1-8, 4-5, and it just goes down like that.
Okay, so then they're going to get the Lakers in the second round.
If the Lakers are the 8, if the Lakers are the 7, then they will get Golden State if they beat Utah. Which I will say, I think Golden State can beat Utah without Donovan Mitchell.
Without Donovan Mitchell?
Yes. I think Golden State can beat them without Donovan Mitchell. And we don't know what Donovan Mitchell is going to look like. If they have Donovan Mitchell, I think it'd be a lot tougher because you just kind of key in on Steph. But and the team has played so much better without Wiseman. I feel bad for Wiseman, and I think it's more so just because he's young. It's one of those things. He just doesn't know where to be. He's out of place. He's making mistakes. They're better without him, and he slows them down. Now they have Steph running around. Steph's going to run through. I think Steph's going to have a historic first round after these play-ins, to the point of he potentially can get this team to deep into the second round, and then they'll get eliminated.
Can you imagine that? Can you imagine the 7 and 8 seeds eliminating the 1 and the 2? We have never seen that.
It'll be the first time ever, and it'll be the only time that ever happened. All because injuries hit the top teams in the league.
Correct.
So there's a chance if Steph can do it. Hey, I'm just telling you now. I'm sold on the idea that Golden State and the Lakers will eliminate their 1 and 2 seed.
We'll see.
I'm sold on that. So, okay, let me ask you this now, Jimmy. We are at the point of recognizing that the New York Knicks are actually a legitimate franchise. They are a legitimate team this year. They look like a team that should do something. And this is where we kind of get a little bit sticky into this. So, Taylor Rooks from Bleacher Report and all the other things that she does, she's like as they would say, the Jamaican has like 80 jobs. She does it like crazy. She does everything, which is awesome because she's really good at it.
Right.
She put out this tweet the other day. You simply can't deny that the NBA is better when the Knicks are good. This is fun because the Knicks are now in the playoffs for the first time since 2013. So this is 8 years of no Knicks in the playoffs. So it made me pose the question: is the league better when the Knicks are good? And I ask you this because let me ask you that. Do you think the league is better when the Knicks are good?
Yes, absolutely. It's funny whenever I think about the Knicks and what they should represent and what they were. The best equivalent that I can think of in terms of the NFL is it's like they're Pittsburgh Steelers-ish. It's like they're New York Giants-ish. No, they don't have the history of winning that either of those two franchises have, but they have that sort of blue-collar, hard-working, the league is better when you're better type of feel around them. So in that sense, you got that look on your face, so you don't agree. That's perfectly fine. But I think the Knicks.
I'm saying it.
I mean, the Knicks, that's the top 3 brand in basketball. So no matter what you think about them, no matter what their history has been, the league is always better when your top 3 brands are good and therefore at least somewhat relevant in your sport. For this season, I won't say that they're a legitimate franchise. I will say that they've had a legitimate season. They've given hope to their fan base all across the country, all across the world. And there are reasons why they've been able to do that. But yes, the NBA looks and feels better with the Knicks being good.
Okay, so there was a response to Taylor's tweet, which jumped out to me because it was the first thing I thought when I saw her tweet, but then I saw this response, and she responded to this response, and I was like, yep, there it is. This was the response, is that it's possible that this is true, but also, paradoxically, the NBA is more enjoyable when Knicks fans are miserable. And that is my whole take with this, is that the NBA is great watching the Knicks be miserable and get their hearts ripped out on a consistent basis by their team. Because this is the thing about it. The Knicks being bad ain't ripping nobody's hearts out. We already know they're going to be bad. And we expect it because they couldn't even get anybody to go to the team. They couldn't get anybody to go to New York. Mm-hmm. The Nets was able to attract players.
Right.
They couldn't even attract players. That right there, to me, told me that they're just in the bottom. And this is where I disagree with you.
Okay.
The Knicks, the New York Knicks, are the Dallas Cowboys.
You're right.
Every year, they're going to do something. You think they're going to do it. They may not have the history of winning, but it always feels like with the New York Knicks that if there's a sliver of them being any good, people get overly delirious. And that's when we get to enjoy the misery of the fans while they watch their team crumble right in front of them.
Okay, I do agree that the Dallas Cowboys are a better comparison, but I don't think you should look at it that way because their fans are nowhere near as obnoxious and delusional as Cowboys fans are. They really aren't, because everybody can think of Cowboys fans that they can't stand, but to think of a Knicks fan not named Spike Lee who just irks you year after year, you'd have to try really hard to think of who that is. I don't have anybody like that, but I can rattle off Cowboys fans left and right who are that exact same type of Cowboys fan.
Well, the thing about it is that Cowboys are a national brand, and the biggest thing with them is that we're located so close to Dallas. So, of course, we've got a substantial amount of Cowboys fans that we deal with that are obnoxious, and we don't see the New Yorkers. When I go through the bird and hear the big name, the people that are in that area, and they point out things about Knicks fans, it sounds like Cowboys fans. Just not as... The Knicks fans more so complain constantly about Dolan and how they would be so much better if he was gone. I get that. I'm with them on that.
Okay.
But they also actually believe that they will be better if Dolan wasn't there. I don't believe that. I just don't. I just feel like the franchise is not a franchise to win with. They haven't done anything since the 70s. I put it to you like this. So, when it comes to ratings, the Knicks in the finals against the Rockets as well as against the Spurs in what was that, 99? They had some of the lowest ratings of all of them. The Knicks don't really move the needle in television at all. Even though it's a big area with so many people, we just enjoy watching them suffer. We enjoy them being miserable. And
I don't enjoy that Knicks fan.
I do. I enjoy it. I enjoy it. Just like I enjoy Cowboys fans telling me every year that the Cowboys are back, they're Dak, Splizat, and they take a bunch of just L.
That I do enjoy.
Well, it's because you're also a 49er fan. So you have back in the 90s, you were either a Niner fan, a Cowboy fan, or a Packers fan. It was basically the triangle, the holy trinity of NFL teams. You were one of those three. And so it is beautiful for you. It's just succulent to see the Cowboys L's. But the thing is with them, I think the league is better when the Knicks are respectable, because then the hopes get up for Knicks fans, and it's beautiful watching them get knocked down.
So you don't think it's at a respectable level now? You feel like it's something more than that? Because are you hearing Knicks fans talking about going to the finals this year?
This year, the only thing I've heard really from the Knicks is that they're happy that they're competent, which I will give them this year.
Yes.
This ain't going to be the first year you're going to hear from them, though. It's going to get worse next year.
You're saying
this is not like the Pacers who've made the playoffs just about every dang years, and the Wizards who make it on a regular basis thinking they're going to do something.
You're saying the better the Knicks do and the more that Julius Randle establishes himself as a perennial all-star, that the Knicks fans are going to ultimately really turn into Cowboys fans and get even more delusional.
Jimmy, they thought that everybody was going to go there as a free agent. Didn't we have a long list of players that were going to be Knicks over the last 15 years?
We did.
You don't think that's delusional?
Not necessarily. I mean, what they were banking on is that one player taking the dive, and then a domino effect where other players, that one player hasn't taken the dive yet.
They had one player. They had Carmelo Anthony. Still couldn't attract anybody.
That's different. That was different. Nope. They traded the farm for him. I'm talking about a legit free agent. A legit free agent who could go anywhere. That's totally different than a player under contract in that scenario.
You didn't have to trade the farm. Kevin Durant was a free agent. He could have just walked up there next to Carmelo Anthony and gone.
Yeah.
There's been plenty of free agent players that could have just walked up. LeBron James was a free agent and could have walked in there instead of going to the Heat.
You're right.
Why are they delusional enough? This is where their cowboy delusion comes in. They think everybody wants to go play for the Knicks. Guess what right now they're doing? You want to know who they're looking at right now? You know who they're
Bradley
looking
Beal?
at. Nope.
Who?
Zion Williamson. And this is the reason why. Zion, of course, was... First off, you saw how disappointed he was when the draft went down.
Yes.
Don't care what anybody says.
I can see why now.
That dude was upset that he ended up in New Orleans. He wants to play ball, but you could tell that if it was Atlanta or New York, he'd have been happy. He wasn't very happy with the selection of him going to New Orleans. Atlanta and New York was his choices. But then he gushed about how it's fun playing in the Garden, how amazing it is. When the Garden gets full of fans and he's up there, they're going to immediately start to get as delusional as they were before, thinking that Zion's going to end up there as a free agent. And guess what's going to happen? He's going to be like, man, can't wait to get to New York and sign with the Brooklyn Nets. Just saying.
I'm going to think more about the level of delusion that is a part of being a Knicks fan. My brother-in-law's a Knicks fan, and he doesn't like the team, honestly. Doesn't really care for him that much. So he's reasonable. He's a really smart Knicks fan.
I appreciate that.